Recording started. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Cali Flow Boys here, the original SEC versus Big Ten podcast. I'm Ron from Oakland, and I got my homeboy right here, the star of the show, Robert Lamar. What's going on, bro?
Man, just another slow day out here in the desert, man. We got a lot to talk about. I'm really excited, man. How you doing up there in the Bay? Ron, where you at, man?
Hey, I gotta do something right here. The notes and everything. We're doing it live. We're recording, so you're gonna talk about the Big Ten right now.
Man, um, ah, it's been a very eventful 24 hours, right? So, me and you, we spoke when USC and UCLA made the announcement that they're leaving to the Big Ten. And I made a comment to you, and I said that I anticipate the next few moves to be Oregon, Washington, and the Bay, as in Stanford and Cal. And looks like Stanford and Cal isn't on the table right now. But as everyone saw yesterday, the Big Ten offered Oregon and Washington membership to the Big Ten with partial shares of revenue. I believe they're being offered $35 million initially. And that's about $15 million more than what the Pac-12 is offering. I think the Pac-12's deal is guaranteeing everybody $20 million, and it's loaded with incentives. And that doesn't sound promising or reassuring whatsoever. So when everybody got that news, they said, the hell with that, we're gone. So, I mean, that is practically the dagger into a conference that I have grew up on, which is the Pac-12. So I was going to do a eulogy for the Pac-12, but they're already dead. Nobody cares at this point. It's one of those things where the Pac-12 did this to themselves. Their arrogance, their them getting in the way of progress with modern day college football has put them in a position to die. So straight die.
Annihilated.
Like
Game of Thrones style.
Bro.
This is the Game of Thrones red wedding.
Straight up, man. And I'm going to tell you this. You know me. I have no love for that conference. I don't have any conference pride.
All right. Looks like we lost him. Oh, here he goes back.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck's going on, bro. But when it comes down to conference pride in the Pac-12, us USC fans don't have it. They have used USC, and basically when we got into our trouble, everybody said, well, that's their problem. Nobody stood up for us. The only ones who did was UCLA. That's it. That's it. So we call it the Pac-11. That's what we call it. It's like, y'all different. Like, whatever, bye. So I have no sympathy for this conference dying. Oregon is a good fit, but this also should be something that should be very telling in regards to a brand. Because Oregon is a big brand. Oregon is Nike. But for Oregon to be as big as they are, and you're only getting that partial share, that's kind of like humbling when you're looking at it, because money-wise.
Okay.
But $35 million for Oregon is kind of small, don't you think?
$35 million is a lot, but compared to what was Pac-12 actually trying to pay out? Less than 30, right? They're going to get less than 30.
22 million, I believe, was the guarantee, and then everything was incentive based off of subscriptions and all that crap. Man, ain't nobody got time for that. That's goofy.
So basically, what the Big Ten offered Oregon is you were only going to get 22. Listen, our deal is set. Our deal is already set. We can't make more money for you really, but we can squeeze in a little extra that was going straight to the conference here.
Yeah.
We're going to give you almost 15 million more than you're going to get
Yep.
elsewhere, and then you're going to get a better conference schedule. You're going to have
Yeah.
better opponents. That means better ticket sales, better travel, and you're going to have a better access to the playoffs. So this is your screen is going in and out, in and out, in and out.
And I'm like I'm right by my whatchamacallit. I don't know why it's going in and out. Man, I should have been out. Hey, next time I'm gonna be outside.
Central California internet, folks. Central California internet.
Shoot, Mojave Desert internet.
So so you got 35 million. That I think that's a good deal for what the Big Ten needs, what Oregon and Washington needs, because they would rather take 35 million being the Big Ten than 35 million being the Big 12. And so the money's not an option because they're getting more than they would have if the pack, if you all didn't leave the pack. The money wasn't there anymore, so they're fine where they are. And so what the most important part of this conference realignment is what the impact it has on UCLA and USC in regards to let's play these games against the Big Ten, but we shouldn't have to travel for 9 games.
Yeah.
Now we have Oregon, Washington, UCLA with our home games.
Yeah.
So home and home with these guys, home games here. Yep. We still have Notre Dame on our schedule, so we're used to going into Indiana.
Right.
So if you're used to going to Indiana, you could go deeper. So we're running over on this a little bit, but let's discuss the future possibilities in the Bay Area sports of California, specifically Stanford. Where's the Stanford TV market in all this, Rob?
It's the Bay, period. You know the demographics with the Bay. It's a top 5 market in the country. So that alone is appealing for, the Big 12 to be able to knock on Stanford's door. Football wise, Stanford's a little down, but outside of football, Stanford is great damn near in everything else. Like, from like Olympic sports and just from an academic standpoint, man. I mean, they're Harvard, they're the Ivy League of the West. But, they have nothing in common with no Ivy League, because they're in Silicon Valley. Stanford, there's nothing truly like Stanford. So just on that alone, just for the uniqueness in Stanford is worth anybody investing in bringing them on board. And culturally, we mesh with the Big Ten. They mesh with the Big Ten more than anywhere else. I think can't you imagine a Stanford versus Northwestern game every year? That's like every year with them, because those schools got,
well,
they
got
I
also think Stanford has enough power to sustain themselves as Notre Dame and as another power independent West where they can schedule games with Cal Berkeley every year. They can play Oregon State. They can play Washington State, and they can play Big Ten teams. Like,
absolutely.
I mean, they can schedule USC every year still. They can schedule Notre Dame every year. Yeah. They can still schedule Michigan. They can schedule, like, you still need 1 or 2 out of conference schedule games, and they just knock on Big Ten door like, hey, we don't have to join you, but we will play you here, and we will take our team to you in all sports.
Yeah. I mean, and the stepchild of this is Cal. Everybody just says, just give
the flagship of the state, by the way.
And they just don't care about football at all at this point. And everybody just saying, just give it up. But just to finish off on this, the Pac-12 is leaving a century of rivalry games practically to the wayside, with the conference being dead at this point. The only member that hasn't been in the Pac-12 for over 100 years are the Arizona schools. And then the new Colorado and Utah, who are leaving to the Big 12. A lot of people. But
There's Mountain West. We're going to close this out with Mountain West, with Fresno State, San Diego State, maybe possibly other Texas schools that are not in the Big 12 or the AAC. There's not many right now, but there's options for the schools that have been left out. And on that note, we discussed about what Stanford could be possibly Notre Dame, and that's why we're going to have a small segment right now discussing. We're going to go down a little trip of memory lane. Why? And this is the point of the argument is why Notre Dame will never join the Big Ten. Okay, so let's understand that technically Big Ten did join the Big Ten in ice hockey in 2017. There's only 16 institutions in college that have a hockey team, so it was kind of a necessity. That's where Notre Dame is. They will make the lead. They will make the move based out of necessity. And basically, they're participants in 23 NCAA sports. Originally, they joined the Mid-Eastern City Conference Horizon League today back in 1982. And they stayed there until 1995 when they joined the Big East. They stayed with the Big East all the way up into 2013 with the merger with ACC. And basically right now, other than football and hockey, they're basically ACC components. They're teammates with the ACC. And during the pandemic, they joined the ACC for that 1 year, and they were able to get to the conference championship game. And so independence is the nature of Notre Dame. According to a former Notre Dame basketball coach, Notre Dame almost joined the Big Ten around 2003 and backed out at the last hour. So they backed out the last hour, implying the embedded football independence of ND culture. It's the culture of the city because we have to realize that before Ohio State was a part of Michigan's gerandom, when Michigan was the big boy of college football, Notre Dame couldn't beat Michigan. They couldn't win the games. Michigan used to beat their ass, and then Michigan used to say, "Hey, Notre Dame, why don't you join us in the Western Conference?" Okay, we'll apply. We'll go ahead and apply. We'll join you, and we get the application. Michigan said, "No, we're not going to take you. Actually, you got ineligible players, bro. We're not going to fuck with you right now. So fuck you, Notre Dame." And guess what? Not only that, I don't even want to play you anymore. You might have beat us once. We're not even going to play you anymore. And I'm going to go ahead and influence Michigan State and all these other schools, Wisconsin, to not play you anymore. You're not going to have anybody to play anymore. And you know what? That happened. Notre Dame got kicked out, got cock blocked several times. They were called out on ineligible players when it was Michigan who had ineligible players. So, and I'm going back. I'm going to see, the young people today, the young guys today, they were saying, what does that have to do with today? There are certain cultures that exist today that still remember their history from 1,000 years ago and still make decisions based on those actions 500-600 years ago, 700 years ago, 800 years ago. Their history hasn't been forgotten to them. So they make decisions based on that. Notre Dame, as a Catholic system, they were called the Catholic Dreads in the Midwest during this time. They created a hardened culture. They were hardened by this. They created that Fighting Irish name was given to them by the media when they beat Michigan for the first time because they lost the first 11 games. And so there's the culture of what we know in Notre Dame now to being this independent factor is because of what Michigan did to Notre Dame. And so that's a historical moment because 90 years ago doesn't seem like anything to a powerful entity that's been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah. That's interesting, man. That's a nugget that I've never heard of. Shoot. I think
and now here's the funny part. Now Notre Dame fears that if they join a conference that their brand gets marginalized or regionalized. That now they feel like they've reached a certain point in the history and the importance of all landscapes. Like everybody says Notre Dame, no matter where if you're in Alabama, Florida, everybody respects the brand of Notre Dame because they've been there from the Four Horsemen and all the stories. And you as a USC Trojan, where is your allegiance? You are part of that history.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your rivalry with Notre Dame is born out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when they played Army for the first time in 1913, because of this, it became a big game because the Army were the big boys
Yeah.
at the
Oh, yeah.
time.
Oh,
Before
yeah.
World War II, Army was where all the best athletes were.
Well, Army and Yale.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So we're going to a time where you're talking about, they're playing other different institutions, and it's become a permanent. Now they have control over their schedule. They can play anybody they want to, anywhere they want to. They can play in the Yankee Stadium. They can play in the Bears Stadium. They can play anywhere they want to.
They play in Dublin, Ireland.
Yes, and they're going to sell that place out because
Yeah.
the Catholics and the Irish, that's a lovely blend for them. And so you got an independent home TV schedule, a contract. I mean, mediocre Notre Dame is still top tier in views and money.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a school that has all the power,
because they're bigger than football. I mean, they got the Catholic Church backing them up, man. They are the Catholic Church of college football.
That's where they are, man. And the problem we're not going to see in this is everybody thinks that they have to join it. If there's a time where the SEC or the Big Ten actually decides to leave NCAA and create their own league and create their own playoff structure, their own media representation, that may be the day where Notre Dame decides to join a conference. And so that's their state. So now we move from why Notre Dame will never join the Big Ten and why they're fully in the ACC right now, except for hockey, because there's no hockey in the ACC. And now we have, with the light of what's going on in the Pac-12, going into the Big 12 with Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, and Arizona. Now we have, along with Utah, with Cincinnati, Houston, Central Florida, and BYU, which is Utah's like, okay, I can play BYU every year on as a conference game. So I could talk shit to little bro and beat their ass for a conference game. Now that we've been in the Pac-12 forever, and we're about to be 3-time Pac-12 championship. I don't think they're winning 9 games, honestly, but I just wanted to say that 3-time Pac-12 champions, and we're gonna whoop some BYU ass. So that's where we're going with this, man. So where is the fate of ACC? Where's the fate of Florida State, who now has less bargaining chips? Because as much as they think that Florida State, the Clemson, or Florida State, North Carolina, somebody is being held for those last 2 possible spots in Big Ten, it's possible Big Ten might not add anything for a while. They might want to see their conference play a game first before they go from 14 to 20 overnight.
What's hurting Florida State is that other ACC commissioners are letting it be known we're going to stay. Like North Carolina. North Carolina spoke out against Florida State talking. They said that they're talking too much to sum it up. Shut up. You signed the contract, shut up. That's what they're saying. So Florida State kind of is like, well, Seminoles. What does Seminole mean? Wild man, right? They're acting like that because Seminoles are Creek Indians who said, the hell with what you got going on here. We're going down to Florida and we're doing our own thing. That's their thing. And Florida State is acting like that right now. They're basically a man without a country right now. So it's like you're screaming about we want to go, we want to leave, but everybody else is basically trying to hold on to what was agreed upon. The more that this plays out, as you stated, it looks like there is less bargaining chips and less leverage for them to go. And what is the benefit of Florida State going into the SEC? That's where they want to go. That you talk to everybody, they really want to go there. Big Ten, they'll be happy to go, but they want the SEC. SEC already has Florida. So why do they need Florida State? They don't. So I feel like what we're talking about off the camera, the Big 12 actually looks like that might be their best option at this point. If they're going to kick and scream out of their contract, and they might as well at this point. What are they getting right now in the ACC right now? Is it $35 million a year or something like that?
Close to that, I believe. Close to that.
So
So
if you go to the
they
Big Ten,
will
you're
break
getting the
out
same
of the
thing?
conference and they're already making the same money as the next conference.
So why would you do that?
I'll be concerned with how Oregon and Washington accepted 35, 40 million from the Big Ten. Is there enough pot for you to accept that? Because the Gore, the average fan doesn't understand or doesn't know. Maybe some of the Star Wars nerds or Marvel nerds understand this, but Disney owns both ESPN and Fox Sports.
Yeah.
Disney paid $50 billion, but they still owe about $30 billion for Fox Sports. So they're not going to rob Paul to pay Peter. You know, they're not going to rob Peter to pay Paul. So there's not going to be a battle with ESPN and Big Ten. And I think Sankey is more interested in seeing ACC being preserved. And let's go into a historical ramifications of Florida State's actions within 40 years ago, less than 40 years ago. So
who was the head coach there 40 years ago? Bobby?
The great legend Bobby Bowden, who won 2 national championships, built that program from scratch, was there from the coach in 1976 all the way to 2009. Hall of Fame, legendary coach, possibly one of the greatest coaches of all time in the Big Three. Underachieved drastically compared to all the talent he had and the schedule, but at the same time, one of the greatest coaches of all time. He was borderline Saban before there was a Nick Saban in college football and that landscape. And so, you know, the funny thing about it is 1986, Alabama is looking at Bobby Bowden. They're ready to hire Bobby Bowden. Bobby Bowden hasn't had a winning season yet. And so Alabama decides to look elsewhere. And they said, you know what? Fuck, we're not. Bobby Bowden wanted the Alabama job. He told Paul Feinbaum this. He says, I wanted the Alabama job. I would have left Florida State for the Alabama job. And so that's the historical ramifications because Alabama doesn't hire Bobby Bowden in 1987 with Deion Sanders built that program from the scratch. They had their first big time season and they went on a run all the way into the 2000s where they were ranked in the top 5, top 10 almost every year from that point.
It was insane.
And they actually played a harder, more difficult schedule when they were independent. They played Miami, Florida. They played Notre Dame. They played the schedule. They went everywhere. That was how Bobby Bowden built Florida State. They said, we'll play you anywhere. We'll play you in the soccer field. We'll play you in the Cuban Missile Asylum. We'll play you in New York City. We'll play you on the skyrocket, on the skyscrapers. So we'll play you anywhere, anytime. Doesn't matter. That's how they made their brand. The Criminals versus the Seminoles. You know, all that stuff was going on. So they have a record of applying. You know, that was first off, let's remember that up until World War II, that was a woman's only college. And then after World War II, University of Florida sanctioned that school to have, military and other guys coming into school. So then it became a male and female school post World War II. So they tried applying to the SEC for many years, and they were rejected until the SEC decides that, hey, we're about to expand into 12. They haven't expanded before. These original members, they said, we want to create a conference championship. And the original schools at the time that were supposed to join the SEC was Texas and Florida State.
Wow.
Texas says, screw you guys. We don't need y'all. We don't want to associate with y'all. We are better than y'all. We're going to go with the Big 8. So they decided they're going to go with the Big 8. And ACC, they came around. They offered FSU, say, hey, we're a basketball conference. You saw Steve Spurrier down there at Duke, win the ACC and football and everything. Where, you can come join us and dominate us. It's like, you don't have to go into the SEC. We'll pay you. You can come play with us. You play Georgia Tech and all this. We could do this stuff. You could come in with Georgia Tech and everything. So they decided that, and Bobby Bowden said this on the Paul Feinbaum show, I believe May 15, 2015. You can look it up on YouTube. But he says, you know what, Paul? I thought that it would be too difficult for us to win a national championship in the SEC. I thought it would be too difficult, Paul. I said the SEC is too good. We could play them in one game. We could play them in 2 games, but we can't play them in 8 games. ACC is much easier. We could beat them boys up, play Florida fresh. We play Miami fresh, and we could be top 10 every year. So that's what they did.
They did.
And so less than 40 years later, about 30 years later, because we end up having to take Arkansas and South Carolina instead.
Yeah.
And because South Carolina has been playing Georgia every year as a non-conference game, and then Arkansas, played all the other kids, LSU and all that stuff. They were ousted out of Southwest Conference because they were merging with the Big 8.
Yeah.
So, nobody's won the SEC since. So now all of a sudden, Florida State is, healthy and everything, but they're not healthy financially. But they got 3 national championships. But this is what happened. And I have this on good confirmation. But most of the people that can confirm it are either dead or retired. But there was a discussion meeting. I heard this from the UGA side that when Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and Kentucky all agreed that if any ACC member decided to try to join the SEC from this point forward, because South Carolina was independent, they were in the ACC, but they left the ACC to be independent, we will block them out because they created a rivalry game where they played Kentucky played Louisville, South Carolina played Clemson, Georgia played Georgia Tech, Florida played Florida State. They said because you need 4 teams to block anything. And so that's what Texas A&M thought they had that same veto rights when they got into the SEC. And so they tried to cop block the Texas, Oklahoma. And all the SEC boys came up to them and said, hey, we could kick your ass out for free. You know what I'm saying? Back the fuck up. So that's exactly what had to happen. So we going down that line. That's why the SEC is not interested in broke schools. Texas and Oklahoma made their own money.
Yeah.
They got national championships. They have prestige. They're in alignment with the Confederate States values as a flagship program. And the SEC, they value flagship programs. As of 2024, there'll be 16 teams. The only schools that are not flagships are Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Auburn, and Texas A&M. So 3 of them are original members, and the other one brought us Texas recruiting.
Yeah.
So and they're wealthy. They're one of the 3 richest schools in college sports. So you're talking about money right there. So something that nobody in the ACC has except Virginia and North Carolina. They're flagship universities with academics, with prestige, national championships, Olympic sports, everything. North Carolina brings the Jordan brand, the original Jordan brand, and you have the basketball scene of possibly North Carolina, Kentucky, Florida, Auburn, Arkansas, basketball, Texas, Oklahoma. That'd be great. But ACC is not going to implode, in my opinion.
Well, let me ask you a question because the president, I think the president or athletic director, like the
all
the
right, we lost him.
Yeah, sorry about that, Bob. I think the AD from North Carolina practically said that they're staying pat. We've heard other ADs say the same thing, and they peaced out. Do you see the ACC surviving, and do you see Virginia or North Carolina ultimately in the SEC?
I don't see it because I think the pressure is. I think Sankey is going to go. Sankey is the godfather right now. You got to look at these conferences like mafia. It's like they're all families. And right now, SEC is the Corleones. So He's gonna go to the Bras to those family up there in Big Ten. He's gonna go with the NCAA. He's like, hey man, you could do that to the Pac-10. Y'all have a relationship, but let's keep the ACC because that's not where we want to go in the future. So let's see how this plays out first. Let them
Yeah.
they're in their own contract. Like they can't go to the SEC because their grant of rights is with the ESPN. ESPN owns the SEC rights.
Yeah.
So how are they going to double pay you? And so Fox, you think you're going to Fox, but Fox and ESPN are buddies. All they did was monopolize a market.
Yep.
Fox said we'll take the NFL market, and ESPN said we'll take the Southeastern Conference. So they're making money on both ends for Disney.
Yeah. Yep.
The reason why they took a 20-year deal is because they didn't have a better offer. And now they're complaining about a deal that they signed. We're calling Scottie Pippen right now. This is what Florida State's doing. Florida State is calling themselves a Scottie Pippen. They signed a dumbass deal, $1 million a year for the next 20 years. You know what I'm saying? Now everybody's making $25 million a year. You thought you were doing something when you made that $1 million a year contract. You Scottie Pippen yourself because you don't have foresight. Yeah. That's why I'm grateful that as original founding member of the SEC, we have had 3 great conference commissioners. And Sankey has been there since 2013, and he has done nothing. He has put his hand on our baseball programs, on our basketball program to make us an all-everything conference more than ever. And since 2013, we haven't won a basketball championship, but we are more competitive ever in all 3 sports. And that's what I love about it. We lost a national championship game to LSU this year after 5 years ago. We beat their ass in the same circumstances. It's a great thing. That's what college football is all about. That's what college basketball and baseball is all about. And that's what the SEC is about. SEC is winning championships. And before we close this, I want to bring up a moment right here. Reddit on college football Reddit pulled up a stat. It says national titles in football and basketball since 2007 based on 2024 members as of today. And we're going to include, now remember, this is basketball with men and female.
Okay.
And we're talking about football. National championships since 2007. The Big Ten has only 1 total. That's including USC and UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. The Big 12 currently has 3.
You said for football and basketball?
Men, women's basketball, and football since 2007. Big Ten has 1 2014 championship that they won over Oregon. Big 12 has Kansas in basketball. They have some basketball and all that stuff. And ACC is the second most with 8.
You said who?
ACC has more national championships in basketball, men and women's, and football than the Big 12 and the Big 10 combined. They need to stay put.
Yeah, because football
they are already a better conference.
Right? For football, it's just Florida State, right?
No, you got ACC.
No, I'm
this
saying
is ACC. You got Clemson.
No, I'm saying for the ACC staff, for the football and for the combined, I think the only football one is Florida State, right?
No, Clemson.
That's right. So they got 3.
3. Yeah. So the rest of the 5 are basketball.
Yeah. North Carolina, Duke. Yeah.
So we got 1 from the Big 10, 3 from the Big 12, 8 from the ACC. That's a total of 12 championships since 2007.
Yeah.
And so why does the SEC need to add anyone when they got 19?
They don't need to. Everybody else just want money.
You just saw in baseball, you just saw Florida LSU play in a national championship. You just saw Mississippi and South Carolina battle with LSU. LSU, South Carolina, and Mississippi State are battling in the Final Four for women's basketball. I mean, and from 2007, you only got 2 men's basketball national championship. Kentucky in 2012 with Anthony Davis, in 2007 Joakim Noah and Al Horford back-to-back championships. And then the rest is football, baby. You got basketball championships with South Carolina, LSU, women's, and you got what Alabama's got what six national championships. LSU's got two in that time frame. So that's 8. You got Florida with 1. You got Georgia with 2. You got Auburn with 1. You got 6 teams since 1990 in the SEC that's won a national championship. And all you have is Michigan with a split championship, USC with one championship game they won. And that one was thrown away, and they still get credit by the media for a championship game they never won. That's LSU.
We need our title back. We need our damn title back. We need it
LSU
back.
Won the national championship in 2003. Not USC is not a back-to-back national championship one. If they would have beat Texas, and not given up that game through gambling, we would have probably seen a back-to-back championship. But no, they did not win back-to-back BCS national championships. They won a Rose Bowl, and they won the national championship against Oklahoma after they lost the national championship previously year to LSU. LSU dumped on Oklahoma, and USC dumped further on Oklahoma. Oklahoma's been the asshole of national championship games from 2000 to 2008. Like, you just want to put your schlong in some wide open booty hole. It was playing Oklahoma in the game because Oklahoma had no NFL talent. They only had the Roy Williams and a couple of the busts, and they were they could beat Texas. That's all they got. I'll beat Texas. A Texas school that won one national championship since segregation ended. Okay? The whole history of Texas is Donald Royal racist ass. Like, I don't want to hear shit about Texas and Oklahoma. It was like, let's put it on here on the map. Texas, Oklahoma. Your history means nothing. What you did in the Big 8 in the Southwest, what you did in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, what you failed to do, what you did do when you beat Alabama in the 70s, when you beat Alabama back then, means nothing. How many SEC championships do you have, baby? How many SEC championships do you have? How many times have you won the national champion winning the SEC championship? How many times have you lost the SEC championship, then turn around and beat the SEC champion in the national championship? You haven't done any of that. So you come in on the bottom, just like Vanderbilt, just like South Carolina, just like Texas A&M, just like everybody that's coming to the SEC and failed to win an SEC championship, because the only SEC champions since 1992, since the conference championship created, have been original members. Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, LSU, Georgia, Alabama. Those 6 are the ones that's sitting on Mount Olympus. Okay? We have a table that the other schools, only Kentucky could sit at. Kentucky's the only non-football team that can sit at this table because they got basketball championships that's more than all of us combined. So Kentucky's the god of basketball, right? So in our conference, that's the big boys. So they can sit at this table. So there's 7 members. Texas, Oklahoma, you sitting at the kid table. They're coming in sitting at the little kids table with Texas A&M, Arkansas, that's been here. And guess what? They at the kid table, but they got hair on their chin. They got hair on their chest. They got a little deeper voice. And you coming in here sound like a little kid. Hey, y'all, we just here from the Big 12. We ready to kick some ass, y'all. We Texas. We Oklahoma.
I'm going to say this. Texas thinks they're coming in and kicking some ass. You hear it in the fan base. They think they're coming in and they're going to kick some ass. They
also think they're a national championship contender
this year. They think that they think they beat Bama this year. They think they are. I have not heard
Quinn Ewers is an NFL prospect quarterback, but what I've seen from him play, I don't even think he's in the top 50 I've seen in my lifetime.
He's not even the best quarterback on the roster.
But let's put it like this, man. In the last decade, Alabama has lost 2 home games.
That's insane. Repeat that one
When
more
when
time.
you when
Two
you
games.
win in Alabama, you got to go against the referees. Playing in Alabama is the most difficult thing to do as an SEC member because the SEC officials are headquartered in Birmingham,
Mm-hmm.
Alabama. And so you talking about going into Alabama at night,
Good luck.
and you're talking about you got Alabama, you almost beat Alabama at home in a noon game, 11 a.m. game that Alabama didn't even wake up. Hey, man, let me tell you about something. Let me put something for you Big 10 fans, you Big 12 fans. Let me tell you something about SEC football. We play football at night. You want to see SEC play at their worst? Watch them play in the afternoon. Every team, no matter what talent, I've seen my Florida Gators. The 2018 lost the game on a noon game.
So see,
That's the
is that
upset.
why you hate
So
CBS?
when you want to bet on the team to cover, Georgia goes into Missouri for a night game or a noon game, you bet on Missouri to cover. You know, when you go in certain areas where you got big games, sleepers, and whatever, because it's hard for an SEC coach to keep these kids plugged in week in, week out, week in, week out. It's a difficult process because you're always playing young players. We're not playing 6-year veteran teams and everything here. You only get that at Vanderbilt, where you got 5-year seniors and everything. When you're playing SEC, you're playing freshmen. We played 6 freshmen 13 games last year. We're going to play at least 10 this year. That's going to be on the 2 deep on the offense and defense. Cornerbacks, safeties, linebackers, wide receivers, redshirt freshmen playing at tight end. At Florida University, we're going to be seeing a lot of young people that nobody's seen. And that's what the SEC, every year is a big recycle. It's the NFL. We're sending kids off every year. Alabama, LSU, Georgia, and Florida are sending almost close to 30 kids every year to the NFL. So you want to get those kids, you know what they came to the SEC for the night games. You want to see the SEC at their best at the night games.
So that's why you hate CBS. So that's why you hate CBS.
Yes, that's why we hate CBS, because we hated those 3:30 games. That's why we want to go to eat. And this is the thing about it is, this is why SEC signed a 7-year contract with the ESPN, because not only did they want they wanted to be able to dictate when their teams play.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to monopolize the night games, the primetime games on one program. So when you talking about ESPN, you got ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and SEC Network. That's 5 channels that can host SEC games when they want to in all sports. All sports, basketball, baseball, football, Olympics, gymnastics, softball, volleyball, all the sports. That's what we got into this contract about. It's not about making the most money. It's about making the most control with your networking. Because if you could say all you need to do is subscribe to the SEC, to the ESPN network, and you got total access to all SEC football, that's a win. And that's what the Big Ten is doing with Fox. But Fox is trying to sell rights that they don't. I mean, the Big Ten with Kevin Warren, that's now at the Chicago Bears organization, he attempted to enter into contracts where he sold the rights to the Big Ten to NBC and CBS that Fox owns. So this payout for the Big Ten, they have to be careful they're not in violation of contracts. So that's why the ACC better chill the fuck out and try to sit back and just enjoy being the second channel on ESPN, because you're not winning anything. So enjoy the money you got. If you can't get out of your own debt, like Florida State's actually going to the Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan, trying to figure out if they could borrow and leveraged their university
Can buy
to
out.
get out of the grant of rights.
Yeah.
$350 million. That school, I think that school would take 30 years to pay that off. And it's going to be an irrelevant contract.
Yeah, that's wild, man. Well, hey, man, we covered it all, bro. Damn good show.
That's right. Man, this has been a great show. We're probably going to edit this down some and bring it to you in different diverse ways. But, man, Robert, it's been great. We're going to catch up with you again. And thank you for catching the original SEC versus Big Ten podcast. This is Ron from Oakland, Robert Lamar. We're signing out. Have a great one. Talk to you later.
Peace out, yo. Fight on.
Peace out. All right, man. Have a good one.
You too, Brody.